Well, good morning, everyone. Aloha. I'm Jason Schwartz, your host here at the Neutral Zone. Welcome to our show. Well, it is almost the end of August. It's, I think, the 22nd? 4th. Yeah, man who knows what day. That's perfect. I have a guest that many of you know because you are awake. But some of you aren't awake, and we're going to wake up because we have the pleasure of having a sitting councilman, Kauanoe Batangan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason. Happy to be here.
Really
Appreciate
a
you
pleasure.
having me.
Let me make sure I have enough volume. Okay. Oh, you're most welcome. It is always a pleasure to be sitting with someone who is presently serving. You know, sometimes when we do shows, you know, people are concerned. I remember way back when I was first doing this is in, you don't want to know how old it is, but 30 years ago, Joe Suki came on my show. He had his manager with him or someone like his campaign manager and a publicist, because at the time there were things going around in the public about him getting a real estate deal with Bishop Estate and that it was improper because it was whatever. And so when I had him on my show, I guess they were worried to be there, you know, ready if something happens that I say. But when he was done with the show, he said, well, I'm going to let them all know that they can come on your show, because this is the neutral zone. What that means is I'm not here to attack. I'm here to bring ideas from all sides and come and talk about them. If you and I don't agree about something, what a nice thing to be able to talk about it rather than slug it out or see it in the press. You've been in council now. How long have you been there?
About 8 months, I guess. I started January 5th of this year.
And January 5th of this year, and you were appointed.
Correct.
But you were appointed by the mayor, who looked at two candidates and said, okay, so which one of these people do I want to be moving forward?
I believe he interviewed 4 of us.
4, okay. Let me make sure when you speak, I want to make sure your volume. So
okay. Testing.
Oh, you're good.
Okay.
He interviewed 4 of you guys, and he said, I'm going to give you his thinking. Well, this guy's sharp. He was in the office. He knows what's going on. He knows procedures. This will cause the least disruption in the middle of a session. And he knows what he's doing, and probably working on the same stuff you were working on before, except now you're the...
Bring the mic closer to you.
Me?
Yes, you. You're soft on the mic.
I'm soft. I'm soft. Okay. Better? Okay. So, I'm very happy that, you know, you're in the seat. What made you decide to be council, sir? I mean, you were in her office working, so how did that happen?
No, so I had known Councilmember Kauanoe for a while. We met when I first ran for the state house back in 2018. She was running for the council. That's the year she first won office. But I didn't work for her. I was working for Councilmember Sugimura. Okay. So we were neighboring offices. And that's how I got to know her.
I see. Now, so you know the procedures, and when you're in your seat, do you find that most of your time is spent reviewing stuff for upcoming stuff, or do you spend a lot of time in creation of new policy? What do you think?
Both. So I guess I'll start here. I have a background in politics and policy making. It goes back a little over a decade. I studied political science as an undergraduate. I have a master's in public administration and a master's in public policy. I've also worked on the federal, state, and county levels of government prior. I started off my career working as an aide to the late Senator Dan Akaka, first in his Committee on Indian Affairs and then in his personal office. I just mentioned that I worked for Councilmember Sugimura previously. So I'm familiar with the legislative process. I'm also familiar with the executive process. I was Deputy Director of Transportation, served as a manager in the Office of Recovery after the wildfires, and then most recently I had served as the Executive Director of the Maui Metropolitan Planning Organization. So I helped do long-range transportation planning and financing here on Maui. So I do have some background in this. That did give me a little bit of of a leg up when I started off. I didn't just come in green. I understood the council. I understood the general policy making process, and not just that, but how the policies we make on council interact with the administration, and as well as our state and federal partners. So that all influenced how I approached my role as a council member when I first got on, because I had to hit the ground running. Second week on the job, Mayor asked for a meeting to discuss budget already, because he had to finalize his proposed budget so that they could transmit it to us end of March, and then we could work on it in April. So back to your question, how do I spend my time? I actually spend most of my time talking to people like this, but generally more out in the community to try to understand their hopes. What are the problems that they see county government being able to help with, and then working with my staff, both in my personal office and committee, to try to figure out solutions to those societal problems that we keep hearing about.
Do you find yourself, I don't know how sunshine laws might affect this, but they may. When you're hearing things from the public, my natural thought would be you'd be discussing it with others in the council to see who else might be working on something like this. Does that happen? Or is it mostly like in your own silo until?
So you do have to be careful because of sunshine law. For those unfamiliar, it is a state rule, or I guess state law, that governs how members of boards and commissions can interact with each other, because they want that business to be done out in the public. The council falls under that, and so we do have to work out in the open. We can coordinate on a one-on-one basis, but there are restrictions there. And so some of it is just a conversation with my colleagues. Some of it is conversations on the floor. And then some of it is just looking at, there's a log of what each council member is asking of our shared staff, known as the Office of Council Services. So you can kind of get a sense of what people are working on individually. And then you can look at each member's committee logs to see what kind of legislation they have in the docket there. So based on conversations, individually and then publicly with all 9 members, and then based on the publicly available information, you can get a sense of who's working on what, figure out what are the unmet needs, and then from there you figure out how do you want to work towards addressing those needs.
Gotcha. So up just off the top of your head, what are the kind of things that the public expresses interest about that you come upon?
Well, I guess the things that I get most calls about, homelessness is one of them, but we also get a lot of calls about feral cats and chickens, abandoned vehicles, roads that need repaving. What else?
Aren't those the kind of things that there are departments? Isn't that why we have a county government? The
Yep.
chicken catchers or that group is so, but they call you guys, and so you direct them. You sort of like a traffic cop.
Yeah, so I think of our office as a switchboard. People don't necessarily know how to utilize their county government. They see a problem, and the person that they just immediately think to call is their local representative. It being Kahului, or I get calls from all over, but primarily Kahului. And so they'll call me up, and I can either direct refer them if there is an established process. So say there is an abandoned vehicle in front of their house. This is the number to call. I'm having issues with my trash pickup. This is the number to call. Or, sometimes it needs a little bit more work. There's no easy fix. And so we work with the department and then follow up with the constituent.
So, for example, feral chickens you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's a problem because you can't kill them, right?
Yeah.
The public can't kill them, and I don't know how they remove them. They have to find a chicken catcher.
Yeah. So
they've taken over Kihei, just so you'll know.
Yeah, and there's quite a few in Kahului too. There's pretty established colonies, or I don't know what the term is throughout the island. It's a bigger problem than just Kihei.
Can we mix feral cats and feral chickens together and find a solution?
we want to find solutions. I don't know if we necessarily just want to kill them. I think we want to find humane solutions. I don't have as much information on the chickens, admittedly. But with the cats, for example, we do try to work with the Humane Society. There are humane ways to do animal population control. Some of it includes education, because feeding cats is seen as a way to make sure that they are able to live with dignity. But done right, you can help control that population. Done wrong, you can help increase the amount of feral cats that are out there. And so the way in which we do it matters. And that's what we want to try to get the message out on. We can also work on what's called trap, neuter, and release, TNR, where you help control the population by ensuring that those already in the colonies aren't able to
make more.
Correct. And then you can also help with the problem by making sure that people who have cats as pets are able to, maintain that relationship with them. They're not just surrendering their cats because of XYZ, whatever the reasons may be. So you work with the nonprofit organization or the county departments to help the individual families care for their pets, their pets in a way that's meaningful, so that they're not surrendering them out on the street and then contributing to the
massive feral cats out
Correct.
there. I gotcha. What other things you hear from the people? I mean, from my side, what I hear is houselessness.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, if not the first one, is crime. There are a lot of people that are not comfortable with the current situation out there, and they blame it all on the homeless. I know from, sadly, experience with so many homeless, there's all kinds of homeless people. And many of them are being plagued by this crime spree out there on the street. Do you guys get involved in that kind of stuff, or any kind of things that is that not the kind of laws you might pass? Something to, I don't want to say, can you sleep in your car now? I don't even know how the rules are going,
Yeah. So we do get involved. I think every council member hears inquiries about this question. It's one of the, the most prevalent questions that tends to come up in any community on the island. As a council member, our domain is on the policy side. So that is where the bulk of our effort is focused, but we also do try to work with the administration to understand what kind of services we can provide to the people who are directly calling us. I guess to answer your question on how we do that, sometimes we'll go out for a site assessment and we'll evaluate whether or not we call housing department, human concerns department, the service provisions that the county has. There are different tools, and we want to make sure that the tool that we are utilizing in the specific situation is, the appropriate one.
It's going to get the answer they want.
And if it's not us directly making the call, sometimes we'll just call somebody from the mayor's office. They have a wonderful individual who's like the houseless program coordinator. And then, she's always been happy to assist. So we can try to go out. We can ask somebody else to come out with us. We can try to make those types of referrals. But you asked, about is it legal to sleep in a car? Sometimes. I mean, it depends on when, where, and whatnot. The county had been working towards a program in which we could have cars parked, and it would be in a lot, and that would
safe lot.
Yeah,
and they could sleep at night, and they had facilities, right?
Yeah, there seems to be some, I don't know, some issues with the contract, and so I think the administration is starting to reconsider whether or not they want to move forward with that program. I think that's going to require a little bit more conversation between the council and the administration. Because it was a directive from the policymaking body, and there was appropriations made toward that effect. But we also want to be practical. If there are logistical concerns, we don't want to keep trying to force this issue when the people responsible for implementing it are telling us no can, at least not at this time. So
Who's responsible for? I would say
this one's Department of Human Concerns.
Human Concerns.
Yep.
A lot of people might pull out their shotgun and point at Department of Human Concerns, right? Already as saying you're not providing enough solutions. So that may be legal reasons, but I know that it's been so long, and that's the biggest thing I hear. They always bring up, how about a safe place?
Yeah.
I don't care how much you think it's not legal. We need a safe place.
And I think where the council can get involved is helping to work with the administration again, but create a coherent overall strategy. Because I mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that the right tools are deployed in the right situation. That's going to be the case for most things, but especially in something as complex as houselessness. Not everybody would have a vehicle to be able to sleep in, and so this situation may not be. Others may need additional services to go with it. So we want to make sure that there are a menu of options available so that the solutions necessary to help one individual are there, and that we're not trying to force another individual with a different set of circumstances into that same policy prescription. So having an overarching and coherent strategy for houselessness is something that we can help with. I am encouraged because of the new director at the Department of Human Concerns. She was brought in specifically because this is her expertise, and so we're trying to have those conversations about what can we do. Great. There seem to be more proposals for the long term than anything in the short or intermediate term right now. But that's where we as council members can try to move the needle.
So, for example, if I thought it was an emergency, I'd go to the administration and say, this is an emergency. We need something until your policies are in place. That's an administration request.
Yeah, but I think, so in this situation, you are talking as a hypothetical council member, or you are talking as a constituent?
I'm just a member of the public.
Okay.
And because people see me on TV and because they know me, they come up to me a lot of times and tell me what's going on, and they want me to have them on the show. And I always say, you can be on the show, but I'm not here really to be only complaining. I like to have solutions in mind. I like to work towards some. So that's why I'm asking it that way.
And I guess short answer is yes. You could just call them up like that. A lot of people do. A lot of people call us as council members, and then we connect them. There are a lot of different touch points within the county government that you could reach out to with that same goal.
You probably know that in these, I want to say, recent years, I've been doing these shows for God knows. I was going to say as long as you're alive, probably not. But I've been doing these shows 30 years plus, and the thing that keeps happening is people do not really feel I wish they could feel. That's why I like doing a show with you. This is a sitting council person who's saying, hey, I'm here to help you. You can call us, and some things we'll be able to help, but we'll be able to refer you to the right places. And I represent everyone in the county, but I get mostly calls from Kahului.
Yep.
You think people think you're just Kahului? Do you find that that's in any way restrictive or not really?
No, I think everybody... we get calls from all over the island. But, being the Kahului residency area representative, that is where I get the bulk of them. I will say when it comes to accessibility, my office has a town hall about once a quarter. We've had 3 now. And then we do open house roughly every other month. So town halls we'll put together an agenda based on the types of issues that we get the most frequent calls about. So hurricane preparedness in the lead up to this season, or the feral cats was one. We had the houselessness team come out. So that was the mayor's office representative.
Are these in-person ones rather than on like a Zoom or kind of things like that?
Yep. So these are in person.
I see.
So the town halls, we've been rotating throughout the district. We did one the first one was at the college. The second one was at Pomaikai, and then the third one was at Kahului School. So we'll just keep rotating so we can hit different neighborhoods within the district. And then the open houses have just been like a table we'll set up with our banner and some signage so people know, and just be open to anybody who wants to come vala'au. Those have been at the Sunday market and the Tambayan corner, both in Kahului. And those have been really helpful. So sometimes, the structured program has been helpful because you hit the big topics that people have been calling in over those, recent few months. And people have been appreciative of having, seeing that responsiveness. But they also liked the Q&A portion of the agenda that allows them to just ask anything. And then the open house is where we just, put up a sign and make ourselves available. We've gotten people come in and talk about all kinds of things. And one of my proudest accomplishments throughout budget was actually inspired by a constituent from Kihei who just walked up to us and said, hey, these PSP, those power shutoffs, whenever there's like a red flag warning and they want to take precautions to make sure that they don't cause a fire. My kid has special medical needs. So every time they do a proactive power shutoff, we have to go to the emergency room. It's a huge drain on resources for us. It's a huge drain on resources for the community. Can you figure out a way to keep the power on just for our house so that, the life-saving medical equipment can keep running for this individual? So we reached out to HECO. As a result of this conversation, that didn't seem to be feasible for them to just keep the power on for one house and when they're trying to, shut off, portions of the grid. So we came up with a different proposal. Can we have solar and battery just for the house to be able to keep the life-saving medical equipment operational, for a limited duration, just so that we don't have to inundate the hospital every time there's a power shutoff in these various communities. So that was, fortunately, we were able to get it into the budget. I think my office and the administration, HECO, and maybe a few other stakeholders are still working to iron out the details of how this is going to operate. But we anticipate it coming online in the near future. And hopefully, because of these open houses and these, the conversations that we have with community, that we're able to solve a problem for this, family, but also others. I've had several reach out to our office since, and I think the numbers that we got from the hospital on who goes during these shutoffs suggested there was more need than I had realized. And so, going back to your point about council members being available to the public, we do try. I think all of us in our own ways try. For me, it's events like this. It's other whenever I get an invitation to go to events, I try to make myself available. But we also have structured opportunities in which members of the public can interface with us. Those town halls as well as those open.
And those are individual. Each council person has their own plan for that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I see. So anything that you've done that when I was bringing up that question, I forgot what I was asking. Now I remember. See that? You and I know that the issue of who pays for different parts of construction projects, that the infrastructure cost is so great that it brings the overall cost of a project up, and developers say, well, we can't. That's $25 million for that highway to be widened. How do you make the, not specifically, but those kind of decisions? You've heard in the news controversy. It seems that those kind of decisions have created this. You see it when the election season. There's this group against that group, and often the big issue is someone supporting the big fat developers and someone's not, and we're getting housing that's for the big people and not for the little people. How do you deal with that kind of stuff? Is that a good question?
No, it's a great question, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I think there's a couple of different ways we look at it. On the council, there are two big areas of jurisdiction that we have as council members. One is land use, the other is our budget. So land use dictates what kind of development we're willing to have, when, where, and how. And I think that gets at the meat of the kind of the tension that you had just described. And so when I evaluate those, I tend to look at our different land use plans. There's a state land use, there's Maui Island plan, and the community plans, which includes Molokai and Lanai, or Lanai, and then zoning. So you want to make sure that all of our land use plans align to allow for the type of development we want to see. And that's one way that we can lower costs. As council members, we can help to go through the entitlements so that it's not a cost put onto the project. I would push back on the way that you frame this. It's not. I don't necessarily think of it as a developer versus I don't know, somebody else. But when we try to approach these problems, we think about the end user. How can we make it cheaper for our residents to obtain a home? So land use is one. Then there's the projects themselves. You mentioned like the subsidy and the road widening. That infrastructure is a big one. Way in the past, a lot of public infrastructure had been publicly paid for. We had over time shifted to a model where we would put the cost of those infrastructure improvements on the developer, but what that ultimately did was put the cost of that infrastructure on the developmental project, because the individual project's what has to pencil out, because otherwise you're not going to get the loan and the project cannot get built, and even if it does, or if it does get built, it's going to be super expensive. So those are the kind of things: water, wastewater, roadways, that we as the county can help lower the cost of housing. And if we're strategic in how we invest our public dollars into those infrastructure projects, we can get the biggest bang for our buck. We can have those livable, walkable communities that allow for people to be able to have meaningful lifestyles in the neighborhoods that they live. You can walk, you can bike, you can take public transit, you can have within to your job or to your grocery store, to your park, to your church, those kind of things. And then when the project comes, so that that's land use at large, then there's the infrastructure that surrounds the project and will serve not just those individual homes, but the community surrounding it too. And then you get to the project itself. And when I think of those trade-offs, I look at the financing models, because we need housing on every single level. We have a deficit on every income bracket. Right. And so different projects targeting different demographics are financed differently. So you got to have a little bit of a nuanced take when you do your analyses. But essentially, we want to ensure that the project as a whole pencils out. And I think this is where I differ from some of my colleagues. A lot of them only focus on the income capped side. So there's the workforce housing, or the low income housing, or whatever it might be. There's a set number of units within that project that are capped by price, and they're normally tied to the income of the people who qualify for those houses. Right. But if you keep putting on these land use entitlements and these infrastructure costs, what that does is it raises the cost of the market rate ones too. Sure. And if those are out of reach for our local people, then they're not going to go to our local people. So you have to figure out a way to balance the needs of the project at large, so that it can serve the greatest number of our people.
Well, you're bringing up a great example. That the one that I hear about, the one that comes to mind, is that Wailea 670 development area and that highway stretch between Maui Meadows and there, that it's so expensive, and the foundations of the houses are going to be affected. So might that be, well, let's leave the highway here and let's find another way to get in so we don't have to incur that cost? Because that's one that would, when you talk about the price of housing, right?
Yeah. Okay, so admittedly, this is an example from before my time, and I have not looked into it.
No,
so
I'm only mentioning it as an example that when you're saying, like, for the low-income housing, you want to make, maybe we need to be able to provide the infrastructure so that we can keep the cost of those down for our local people. But when we're talking about something that is clearly inventory for yet another level, that it gets to be a sticky issue, and it becomes political, and then someone puts a lot of money in a political campaign thing, and then it becomes what we always see, this bickering that goes on. I never see the council openly, and maybe I'm not watching close enough, but openly have discussions of it where the public can hear the rationale behind some of these decisions. Do you ever find that you get into a point where if you explain what's going on, you might get a, wow, I get it now, kind of?
I don't know. I actually think that some of us do a pretty good job of explaining our thinking as the projects come before us. There's not I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I've heard another member of the council explain like their philosophy for how they evaluate projects quite like we're talking about now.
Yeah.
But that's in large part because the vehicles in which we have these conversations tend to be, the project themselves. And so we tend to give our thoughts on that individual proposal that is before us. But I don't know. I disagree with that premise because I actually do think that a good number of the council members say, I'm voting for this because of X, or I'm voting for this because of Y. I'm not voting for this because of A.
You hear that?
Sometimes. Okay. And not from every member and not on every project, but I do hear it. I think we're all aware that their cameras are on, and there are people who are aware that it's an election season, and so you tend to see this kind of
right.
Yeah, right.
They're showing off.
Yeah.
Right. But I just always like this show. The premise of this show is whatever your opinions are, let's discuss it. If we all understand the reasons why we do things, like you said, maybe we can find some more input to make it work even better. And that's my goal. And that's the reason I ask these kind of questions. It's like not to really be pinpointing a specific thing, but more like to get the public to understand. Because I get a lot of that. Public has no idea what it takes to make a decision like has to happen on council. And this one's portrayed as the evil group, and this is the good guys. And not always the case. There's always reasons. Like I remember people saying, what happened to Tasha Kama, for example? She was really for the people and suddenly she isn't. Well, I always think that maybe that she's learning more and has more information with which to make her decisions. And so that's why, in other words, that's why I asked about the explanation part. Because there seems to be, I don't know, that becomes the political fodder when it should be. We should be solving these problems. Like I just have this burning thing inside. We've been talking about housing for so long. I mean, I don't know why we keep pushing back. Do you have any reason for why we got so behind in the housing model? What do you see?
Okay, can I put a pin in that question on why we got behind housing? Because I want to address something else you had said.
Sure.
Like the good group and the evil group and whatnot. Good. Tends to, when you agree with people, they tend to think you're pretty good. When you disagree on an issue or a set of issues, they tend to think you're corrupt or you're incompetent or you're, whatever. You're in the pocket of somebody, whatever. I don't find it quite as black and white. And I haven't found the council as polarizing as I had expected it to be. So I would like to just start off there.
That's good. I'm happy to talk about it because it doesn't get talked about. That's the reason I wanted to bring it up.
I think one of the tough parts about being an elected official in the age of social media is you get put into boxes, or they'll take things out of context, and over time, you were for this in the past, now you're for this today. What gives? And I think that there is a lot of nuance to a lot of the decisions that we make, but I also want to make sure to emphasize that we as decision makers are generally open to taking a different position when we get new information that changes our thinking. And I think that's how you want it to be.
Sure.
New information leads to new position. You shouldn't just go in to a council meeting, a committee meeting, whatever it may be. Yes. I think you want to, be able to evaluate all of the facts that come before you and then make a decision. And so it gets kind of hard for us as policymakers to be able to do those type of evaluations and make informed decisions when we are, put in boxes. You have to be for this because you said you were for this last time, or and there needs to be some understanding about the positions that we're in. Now, you asked about the deficit in housing. This is not unique to Hawaii. It's not unique to Maui. It's not unique to Hawaii. This has been a huge problem that's been ongoing. At least systemically, you can point to the Great Recession, 2008. The housing market crashed. The people who were building houses didn't build, either stopped completely or didn't build at the rate that they had previously built, even after the economy started to somewhat recover. And then I think, we had COVID, we had here locally the fire, inflation's gone up. So there are all of these factors that went into increasing the cost of housing. But I think you have to take a broader view because it dates back significantly longer than just the time that I've been in politics. And we're trying to fight against global forces here.
But I think the reason I brought it up is because I remember, and I've been doing this stuff for a long time, when, do you know Vince Pagoyo by chance? May or may not.
Yes, I know of him. I've met him a few times. He is a former council member,
right,
and I
met him, and he became friendly, and he would come to me and kept saying, "We have to have more housing. We're so far behind. We're 8,000 units." That was way back, and now I don't even know how to count how they figure how many units we need. But if we don't have any more new units, the ones that are old units are going to go way up. Mm-hmm. So we're in a real place. Like you said, we need help in all the different levels of housing. Is there any, I guess I'm back to that emergency. This is an emergency time when I see so many people houseless, and maybe we don't have a place they can all be safe, but I'm just keep looking for other inexpensive options. There are a lot of the people on the street don't want to have their hands tied in any of these developments. Some of them smoke cigarettes, they do their partying, whatever they're doing, and so they don't go into, quote, the things that are conventionally available. But they're full anyway. We don't have to worry. Those places are going to get full with people. But there's a lot of people that are, I don't want to say renegades. Let's call them individuals they're not really good at staying in the system. Do we have? I keep trying to find a way in my own mind of being able to accommodate. When I see the mayor and the places doing bust of these homeless camps for whatever reasons they've come upon, we've got to find a way to accommodate some of these services. Has there ever been discussion of that, John?
Yeah. Okay. So I want to take a step back and provide
Please.
context. So we've been talking about housing and we've been talking about homelessness. So on the housing side, yes, I agree. There is a deficit on island, and that deficit gets more and more severe every single year because we're not building the enough that we need. And when it comes to housing, there are different tiers. We've mentioned this already, but there's like the high end, middle, low income, and then now you're talking about on the houselessness side. Like to me, it runs
together. I've seen
yes.
a lot of people that had houses that are now homeless, and more than
yes.
I'd like to admit.
And
but,
I said earlier that there are a number of different reasons why people are on the street. I've had family who have been out there as well, and even amongst my own ohana, the reasons have varied. So I take that approach when I look at the population at large. And so when I think about policy prescriptions for this, there has to be a menu of options. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We have to have some that, some have mental health issues, some have substance abuse issues, some, have just financial literacy issues, some just prefer to be out on the streets. There are different reasons, and we need to have options that meet the different needs of that population. Now, you mentioned also that there are people who have been in and out of different housing situations, or maybe even the prison system. How do we help them? I think you just keep coming back. I've had conversations with the new director of human concerns, and she said, we just keep trying. And they may not have said yes on the 49th time we approach them, but maybe on that 50th one they will. And they've shown me examples in which you keep going back, and one day they're saying, yes, I'm ready. So, you have to have those policy prescriptions available for when they are ready, and then you have to have some persistence too.
I just want to make a comment. It's a pleasure to talk to someone who isn't afraid if I ask a question where they have some nuances. That's really very rewarding feeling inside, that someone is able to talk about these things in an open way. Thanks. I really appreciate that. I hope that you guys appreciate that a sitting councilman is willing to discuss what he feels about things, and he actually has responses. Some of the people out there, whether in seats or not, you ask them a question and they really are sort of an empty vessel. I don't see that. I really appreciate what I'm hearing, so thank you for that. And I don't think we disagree. The reason I think I keep going down to that homelessness and the houseless thing is because those are the ones that I hear from the most frequently and loudest. And also the people that have been victim to some of the crime that's been happening. So it's just been very present in my world. What subjects are otherwise important to you? We didn't cover or talk about agriculture and war. What areas are your passion or areas that you're working on? Anything that you want to talk about?
Since you're giving me an open opportunity, can
Please.
I use this to introduce myself? I don't think I took that in the beginning.
Oh, I want. Sure.
So I often like to introduce myself through mo'okuaha, or genealogy. It's one, tradition, but two, I think it helps build pilina, or connections between us here in the island. So I am Kauanoe Batangan, the oldest son of Reuben Batangan and Lila Eldridge. My dad is from Ele'ele on the island of Kauai. He grew up on the McBride plantation, where my grandfather worked as a Hanawai man, or irrigation specialist. Grandpa immigrated from the Philippines. He came from San Nicolas as a sakata, or migrant labor, to work in the plantation in 1946. My grandma was born on the plantation but raised in Bacara, which is also a village in the Philippines. My mom is the one from Maui. Eldridge is the Ohana name. Traditionally, we're from Lahaina, but my branch of the family moved to central Maui 4 generations ago when my great-grandfather was named Luna of the Pu'unene plantation.
Wow.
So through her, I have roots on this island and in this community that date back to, Papa and Wakea. But specifically in Kahului, our roots date back to the first residential development. My great-grandparents got a home in first increment of Dream City, my grandparents in second. My parents also bought in second, and that's where I now live. And I share mo'okuaha. It's, again, tradition, but I like it because it allows us to connect. This being such a small island community, people always know somebody, and I think it helps us to be situated in space and time. I also like that it is a mechanism to hold people accountable. If I'm telling you who raised me, the people whose shoulders I stand upon, that also tells you who to go to if I ever am acting out of line, right? And that's, I think, important for us elected officials, because we do have a lot of kuleana, and sometimes as humans we make mistakes, and we need to be held accountable. So that's generally how I like to start off interviews or appearances. I also would like to go a little bit deeper into my appointment. I think there's been a lot of confusion out there about that. So I was appointed to fill the seat of the late Councilmember Kama. I was sworn in on January 5th of this year, and I'm running for election for the first time in this November, or in this. We just had the primary on August 8th. In November will be the general. And so I am seeking to continue serving, but I am not seeking re-election. I was appointed, and I want to make sure that's
And
good.
that was one of the main reasons I thought give you an opportunity as a new candidate to kind of come in and say hello, even though you have been serving.
Yeah.
You know.
And I appreciate it. And again, I try to be as accessible as possible. My office field a lot of calls, and then we make a conscious effort to go out into community, through those town halls and those open houses. And, whenever we get invitations like these, we try to be accessible. I think one of the most beautiful parts of being in local government as opposed to like state or national is how close you are to the people you serve. We really do touch people in their daily lives on a multitude of levels. And, we want to hear how we're doing. We want to hear how we can do better. We want to hear about people's hopes, people's concerns, and what we as a collective society can do to improve.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Well, now you know more about Kauanoe. Is that the one you like to use?
Kauanoe. So I was named after my grandfather, who pronounced it Kauanoe, and that's why I say it the way I do.
Say it one more time.
Kauanoe.
Kauanoe.
Mm-hmm. And then my last name is Batangan.
Batangan. And by the way, I was out at Mulligan's last night, and I told someone I was going to be interviewing. They went, "Oh, I love him."
Oh, good.
That's what I said.
I mean, as elected officials, we hear it from every side.
So I just thought to give you a little
but
bit.
It is reassuring to hear every once in a while.
Yeah, because
that people appreciate the
and
work
I can
we're doing.
appreciate just in talking with you that you're someone that if I had an issue, I could come to you and know that you would really be listening to me.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah,
and we
that's
may not always agree,
No,
but at
that's
least
all right.
I try
That's
to
fine.
listen.
But that's exactly what you want. You want someone that you can talk to, and like if you don't agree, okay, but you'll know why and
Yep.
the whole scope of it all. To me, that's what an elected official, not one that comes in fixed and ready in their position. No matter what happens, they're going to do that, which we know happens a lot.
It does happen. I sincerely hope I don't,
Well, you
turn
seem
that
like
way.
an open guy that if someone comes up with an idea, you're listening. If it's something that can improve something, you heard that. And that is really refreshing to hear.
Yeah. So I, started off my career working for Senator Akaka, who had, the patience of a saint. I was tasked with finishing the term of the late Councilman Kauanoe, who again had a lot of grace. And so that's part of the legacy that I try to live up to. I definitely don't have the same patience as the two of them. They're kind of legendary in that regard, but I do take it to heart. That these are the shoulders upon which I stand and the legacies that I'm carrying forth. And I do try my best to listen and be open and to take that, criticism when we disagree.
Do you have any special? Can you get me a good bus pass at MEO? I'm laughing.
I cannot at MEO, but on the county system.
Oh yeah.
We do have free public transit for seniors. I think it's over 55, students of any age,
Wow.
low income. I don't remember what set that threshold at.
So the public bus has a lot more free riders than I know, huh?
Yep.
Could or can be.
Yep. And then county employees as of the beginning of this fiscal year. So if you are a student or a county employee, just show your ID. If you so student, you got to show your student ID. Senior, you show your your license, whatever, your government license or
Right.
identification that has your age. Low income, you have to go get verified. I don't know exactly what the process is.
But still,
Yeah.
that's great. So there's a public transportation system that reaches out to try to increase its ridership.
Yep.
With people that really need it.
Yep.
That's a good thing.
So you asked about MEO. So for those of you listening who are unaware, my wife is Maggie Batangan. She's the new CEO. And so when it comes to county and MEO items, I try to recuse myself to keep from having any conflicts of interest.
But MEO, Do you hear? I was gonna say in bed. Do you hear any good stories? But I don't want to ask those questions. There are so many people helped by some of these agencies. MEO is a giant example. And talk about following in the footsteps of some really terrific people. That's really the truth there. So I hope she has a good time and is helpful to the whole organization in making it even better, which is great.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Agriculture. I'm trying to think of subjects that where I could bring up things like you hear me talking about the housing or the homelessness. What subjects are passionate for you, or that you?
Sure, we can talk about agriculture. You brought that up.
Well, I just want to see your feelings about stuff.
So, we do have a county Department of Agriculture, and food security is, it's been a topic that's come up a lot lately and something that we're very supportive of. There are a lot of members doing great work in that space already. And so where I am trying to come in and, again, meet unmet needs, like I described earlier, is focus on value-added products. Because I actually think that this is a good opportunity for us to do economic development in our more rural communities. I mentioned before that I have a background in aligning federal, state, and county resources and philanthropic resources too. And I think this is where the county can partner with our state and federal agencies and our nonprofit and philanthropic partners to make some headway. Because we want to make life in the rural districts meaningful. We want them to preserve the nature of that lifestyle that drew them there, and allow for them to be able to make enough money to live dignified lives there. And I see an opportunity. Like, my dream would be to build a certified kitchen in every one of our districts, and then partner with the state, so the college, to take educational programming out to those districts and be able to teach them how to turn their the work that they're already doing into something that they can make more out of. So I think the partnership, the county can provide the facility, the state can provide the programming and the training, and we can partner with the feds or others to be able to help with distribution networks, to help lower the cost of some of the the inputs to for I don't know, say like feed for cattle or fertilizer for crops. I don't know. I'm not a farmer, but as I think through agriculture and where we can make inroads in spaces that we're not already operating, how can we do that? This is like one of the things I'm toying with. I want to go out to the districts, be able to preserve the heritage and the culture there, but give tools that will help people transform their lives and their economies into something that is meaningful. And I see this as an opportunity. Another one I see is cold storage. We hear a lot how reliant we are on the barges coming in. It's even worse on Molokai and Lanai. And with young brothers, I think there's a big having trouble with their operations. I think I hear fears that operations from the barges are going to slow down. So what happens then? I think we can try to invest in things like cold storage facilities, because I've heard that maybe there's not enough goods that can be stored in the stores in those communities until the next barge comes. Or if you are a farmer and you have, say, cucumber or tomatoes or whatever it might be, and you need it to go out at a certain interval, if those barges don't come, your product needs a place to stay stable. And I think that's an opportunity as well. So, I think there are different opportunities for us to be able to help with agriculture. A lot of them are outlined in, there's an ag plan that was just created by the Department of Agriculture to try to get us towards a more self-sufficient future. I remember Johnson is a farmer, and he's very interested in that. And so when I look at this area, I try to find where are there unmet needs, and these are the kind of things that I've been playing with lately.
So, like you just said, Farmer Johnson, has more experience and maybe can help you into seeing where that need and how that need can be better met. And your area of expertise, like you said, is in funding and being able to work federal and state and county together more.
Yeah.
Any other areas of passion? We only have a couple of minutes left, so I want to be able to give you a chance to. Can you imagine we spent a whole hour? Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
See what happens when you're having fun?
Yeah.
I just want to be able to give you the room to be able to bring up things that you feel it's important to deliver to you guys.
Yeah. Keiki care and kupuna care are the big ones that I'm interested in. I don't know exactly where we're going or what I want to propose on these subjects yet, but I hear them. I moved back to Maui. I grew up on the island, went away for college, had been working on the mainland and abroad for a while, and then I came home when my grandma got dementia. And I was very grateful to Maui Adult Daycare because they allowed me to, help care for her, or my mom, my siblings, and the aunts and uncles. We all cared for her, but we had a place to send her during the day, know that she was well taken care of, and that allowed us to still, go out and work. I have 2 young kids, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and so now childcare is the big need in my house. The older girl just started preschool at Kamehameha Paukukalo, but prior to that, she was at Kahului Union Church, which just closed its operation. And so I'm aware of how few options there are when it comes to preschool. I'm aware of how expensive these early childhood education programs are. And so I guess if you are just giving me a few minutes to wrap up on
that's what I meant.
But those are the kind of things I'm interested in.
We only have 23 seconds. Oh boy, time just runs all the time. It has really been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
I want you to know that you have an open door. If there's a thing you want to promote or talk about or issues that you in any way want to discuss,
thank you.
You have an open door here.
I appreciate that.
And I'm going to let everyone go because we're already there. Can you imagine we're out of here already? Thank you guys for joining us. Please come again. Really been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.